You didn't fail. You didn't misunderstand life. You didn't miss your moment. You understood yourself. And today we will explain why knowing yourself doesn't set you free. You know your trauma now. You know your attachment style, your emotional triggers, your patterns of self-sabotage, and the habits that keep repeating in your life. You understand why you overthink, why you avoid discomfort, why you hesitate right before change, and why you return to the same emotional states again and again. And yet, despite all this self-awareness, your behavior stays the same. That contradiction is not accidental, it is psychological. We live in a time where self-awareness is treated as the highest form of self-improvement. Psychology content tells you to understand your past. Therapy culture tells you to analyze your emotions. Self-help culture tells you that clarity is power. And everywhere you look, the same message appears in different words. If you understand yourself deeply enough, you will finally change. But human behavior does not work like that. Self-awareness feels like progress, but very often it becomes a substitute for action. Understanding yourself feels productive because it gives your mind a sense of control. It feels intelligent, it feels mature, and most importantly, it feels safe. The human brain craves safety more than growth. The moment you identify a psychological explanation for your behavior, your nervous system relaxes. The confusion disappears, the internal tension drops. And that relief feels like freedom. But what you are feeling is not freedom, it is cognitive closure. The brain hates uncertainty more than pain. An unanswered question creates anxiety. An unexplained behavior creates discomfort. So when you finally understand why you behave the way you do, your brain rewards you with calm. It tells you the mystery has been solved. And once the mystery is solved, urgency dies. You stop feeling the pressure to change because explanation replaces interruption. Before self-awareness, you said, "I keep ruining good opportunities." After self-awareness, you say, "This is because of childhood conditioning." Before self-awareness, you said, "I avoid emotional closeness." After self-awareness, you say, "I have an avoidant attachment style." The language becomes clinical. The behavior remains unchanged. Psychology gives you words. But words do not rewire habits. The brain's primary goal is not happiness. It is predictability. Predictability feels safe. Even painful routines feel safe when they are familiar. This is why people stay in cycles they understand longer than they stay in situations that could heal them. Known suffering feels safer than unknown change. Self-awareness turns pain into something predictable, and predictability reduces fear. So your brain learns something dangerous. It learns that understanding yourself is enough to calm anxiety, not change. Just understanding. This is how self-awareness slowly becomes a comfort zone. You reflect, you analyze, you journal. You watch more psychology videos about trauma, human behavior, and the neuroscience of habits. You learn about the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. You understand why your brain reacts before you think. You understand why habits are hard to break. You understand why motivation fades. Each time you learn something new, you feel slightly better, not because your behavior changed, but because your mind feels informed. This creates a loop. Awareness creates relief. Relief removes urgency. Without urgency, action never happens. And the loop repeats. This is why so many people feel stuck despite being highly self-aware. At some point, awareness hardens into identity. You no longer say you struggle with anxiety. You say you are an anxious person. You no longer say you overthink sometimes. You say you are an overthinker. You no longer say you avoid discomfort. You say this is just how you are. Your explanation becomes your identity. And now change threatens something deeper. It threatens who you believe you are. The mind protects identity more fiercely than comfort. This is why intelligent, reflective people often stay stuck longer. They can explain everything. They can rationalize inaction. They can intellectualize fear. They can analyze discomfort instead of facing it. Insight becomes a substitute for courage. Psychology rarely emphasizes this clearly enough. Insight does not change behavior. Interruption does. Understanding lives in the prefrontal cortex. Habits live in the limbic system. You can understand a habit perfectly and still repeat it, because behavior does not change through realization. It changes through repetition under discomfort. Neuroscience shows that the brain rewires through action first. Belief follows behavior. Confidence follows evidence. Clarity follows movement. Not the other way around. This is why knowing yourself doesn't set you free. Freedom requires acting before certainty. And action feels dangerous, because once you act differently, excuses disappear, failure becomes real, responsibility becomes real, and the nervous system experiences threat. So the mind chooses reflection over risk. Self-awareness can even become emotional avoidance. Instead of feeling grief, you analyze it. Instead of sitting with fear, you label it. Instead of experiencing pain, you explain it. Explanation creates distance. Distance creates control. And control feels safer than healing. This is why freedom feels uncomfortable. Freedom removes structure. Freedom removes explanation. Freedom removes the stories you tell yourself. And that destabilizes the nervous system. So the brain chooses understanding over change, because understanding feels safe. Self-knowledge is not useless. But without action, it becomes a comfortable cage. A cage built from insight. A cage reinforced by intelligence. A cage that feels like growth, but keeps you exactly where you are. Real change is not elegant. It is repetitive. It is uncomfortable. It is often embarrassing, and it happens before you feel ready. You don't change because you finally understand yourself. You change because you interrupt behavior long enough for the brain to adapt. You don't change what you understand. You change what you interrupt repeatedly. If this video feels unsettling, that is not a mistake. Discomfort is often the first sign that real psychology is working. If you want more content on human behavior psychology, self-awareness, the neuroscience of habits, self-sabotage, and why people stay stuck even when they understand themselves, subscribe to Cognition Vault, because clarity is common, but change is rare.